Hello, welcome to part 5 of this Let's Build ASP.NET MVC series. This is the final whistle project, and we are on... Which video are we on now? I think this is part 5, but I think it's video number 6, because we added the extra one in between these two ones here. So, regardless of what number it is, we're on this one here, which is pulling data into the website. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, we've done all the back-end stuff for adding new teams, adding new matches, and adding new match reports. So, what we want to do now is we want to be able to pull that data into the front end, so that if someone was visiting the website and they didn't have access to the admin area, just like a normal user, they would actually be able to see the website with actual data on it, and that data would be constantly updated. So if you add more and more reports into the back-end system that you have access to, you'll actually be updating the website in real time without making any changes to it on an ongoing basis. So there's no static content on this website. It's all dynamically generated from your database tables, and that's how it should be for a site like this. So we're going to teach you exactly how to do that right now. I'm just going to pull the website up now. I've just started Visual Studio. I've just pressed play on the project. We're now debugging it, and here it is. So we've got this admin stuff set up, as you will well know. If you don't know, then you need to look at all of the previous videos, because that'll be very explanatory, and you'll basically be able to catch up and figure out what the hell it is that we're doing. So yeah, we've got a list of teams when it kicks in. So we've got all our teams. We've got all of our matches between those teams, and we've got all of our match reports of those matches. And what we need to do now is basically stop this from being static content. Now, just before we do that, now you'll notice that this text here. Now this is this is what will be pulled from the database, and if we were to go to the match reports page and add a new one, you can see we can kind of we can type into this box. But actually what we want to do is we want to be able to type HTML into this box, because if we submit this through now and then we pull it into the actual website, it's not going to be in any sort of paragraph tags or anything like that, which is what you want, and that'll give you a lot more control over the text and stuff that you put in there. It'll allow you to sort of embolden the text and things, and just make things stand out a little bit more. Whereas this, at the moment, you can put HTML in there, but I have a feeling it's going to fall over if we do, because ASP.NET MVC treats HTML as kind of like if you're submitting HTML in a form, it treats it as not so much a hacking attempt, but it won't allow it to go through, because it thinks that the information that you are submitting to the back end of the website could potentially be dangerous. So it just throws up an error message saying, "Oi, stop trying to hack my server." Let's just demo that. Let's just see if I'm talking on my backside. So I'll just change this to some HTML, and if I hit create, it's probably going to bomb out. There you go. A potentially dangerous request.form value was detected from the client, and then it obviously tells us the contents. That's the field that's causing the problems, and it says because it might include HTML markup or script, the data might represent an attempt to compromise the security of your application, such as a cross-site scripting attack. If this type of input is appropriate in your application, you can include code in a web page to explicitly allow it. For more information, let's go here. And I'm going to go there so we can see what's going on. So we've got what's called request validation, and that is just basically making sure that the application, any requests that come into the application, are nice requests and not cross-site scripted requests. So you actually have to enable the application to allow this type of stuff to be allowed to come through. However, it also says that a security note here. It says if you are using request validation, you should still HTML code encode text that you get from users before you display it on a page. Now what that means is basically we can set this application to accept whatever the person enters, so it'll accept the HTML, but when we're actually writing it into the front end, we need to write it out in such a way that it's going to be basically encoded so that it can't actually execute anything on the page. So if someone was to enter some scripts and things into the back end, then they wouldn't actually come up on the front end to display messages and things like that. Not that you would sort of sabotage your own website, but if this was sort of customer facing or client facing, or you had somebody random on the internet accessing your website, you wouldn't particularly want them to be able to put a script into your you wouldn't want them to put like a JavaScript script to run something into one of your forms and submit it into your application. So this is basically just going over a brief overview of the security aspects of this type of thing that we're about to do now. So to disable that request validation, we're looking at MVC here, which is what we're working on. At the top of our page, we can put validate request equals false. And I think that's the ASP.NET MVC. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. There's two ways we can do this, or more actually. We can put this in the web.config, which basically means that this is a global change throughout the application. Or we can actually specify the thing on our post request. Our post method in the controller. We can say validate input false, so we could actually copy and paste that in straight away, and that's what we're going to do. There are other methods that kind of touch on things that we haven't actually done yet, but this is the one that's going to work for us. So if we copy and paste that attribute there, and you can see it's at the top of a method, so we're just going to copy it into our controller. So I'll open up this match reports controller. And in the post method, we're just going to put that over the top there, and then run the application. Wait for it to kick in. So we'll go back, and we'll just do what we were going to do before. Just hit create, and this time it should allow it to go through. So it's accepted the HTML that we enter. With any luck, there we go. So it's actually accepted it this time. So that basically teaches you how to allow HTML to be entered instead of just plain text. And like I said, because we've entered HTML, when we come to actually display that on the page, it's going to be nicely formatted because we've included like paragraph tags and things like that. Otherwise, it would be all over here. It would be in the small text, and it would basically just not look right, really. So now that we've covered that, we can actually get into the nitty-gritty of populating these pages. So the very first thing that we want to do is populate the home page. And as you can see, we've got the latest match, and it's the home team versus the away team, the timestamp of the match, and the match report. So what is this then? This is an actual match report. Now, do we want to show that match report on the home page? Probably not. We probably just want a list of the most recent match report, and sorry, the most recent match. And if it has a match report, we would just probably put a button to it that links to it, so that we can click on it to view the actual match report. So let's decide to do that. Let's just display the home team and the away team, the time of the match, and if it has a match report, then we'll display a link that we will then be able to click to view the actual the full match report itself. So let's crack on. So we are on the home page here, /nothing. So that suggests to me that we need to be in the home controller. So I'm just going to close everything down. The home controller, and you'll be delighted to know that we've actually done most of the legwork now already for displaying the stuff on the website, because you might remember that we've got these repositories. So what we actually need to do is, because we're displaying a match report, we can just get the most recent one, and then we can do all that magic with it to display. Well, there's two ways we can do this actually. We can base it on a match report, or we can just get the latest match that has a match report. Probably the easiest way to do this would be to just base it on a match report. Yeah, let's do that. So this home page is going to be a match report. Although it's not actually going to display the report text, it's going to display a link to the report. But it's just going to be the easier way to basically work out that there is a match report attached to a match. So this homepage is going to be a latest match report. So match report repository, and of course we need to let this know all about the models folder. Final whistle dot models. So that should become alive now, yeah. So match report repository or rep. And then we can say var report equals match report rep dot get all reports dot order by descending by timestamp, or sorry, match dot timestamp dot first dot default. And that will basically, if there is a match report that exists, we'll get the most recent one. We'll put it in a variable called report. So if report null in fact, let's not even bother doing all that. We'll just assume that there is going to be a report because we know there is. So we'll just pass that report to the view. So this report is going to be a match report. We're going to pass it into the view. So what we need to do is we need to go to the home page and change this to a strongly typed view. So we can say at model final whistle, final whistle dot, actually, is that correct? It is lowercase m. Final whistle dot models dot match report. So now this view must be of type match report, and since we're passing it in, that's exactly what it's going to be. So now what we can do is we can just fill in these blanks here. We can say, so we want the home team, so we can say at model dot match dot team home team name, and then away team name. We can find out, we can just copy and paste this to find the time of the match, and then we'll just get rid of all of that at model dot, well actually what we're going to do is we're just going to create a link, aren't we? So we'll leave that out for the minute, but I'll just update this this application, because the next thing we do is we need to actually create a page to show the match report. So that's ready. So now that we refresh this page, if we go to the admin area, we'll be able to see the latest match report. Match reports. So the latest one was this 19th of September one, and it was Sunderland 4 Stoke 8. So if we actually go back to the website, it should now be showing the Sunderland v Stoke data on the home page. Just wait for it to load. There we go. So it's completely dynamic now, and maybe we want to put the scores in there as well. So let's just go back to it. We'll get rid of that versus. So we'll just put at model dot match one dot home team goals and at model dot match dot away team goals. We'll put some brackets around it just to make it look a little bit nicer. And then we'll just refresh the page, and now it should show the goals coming from the database as well. So it should say like 8-4 or whatever it was. There we go. So it's a bit of a dodgy font, but never mind. So this is all coming from the database. Now, if we were to go into the admin, and we will create a new match report based on the Leicester City match. We could say I can never spell Leicester. Leicester City deservedly won against Manchester United after 2 wonderful strikes by Jamie Vardy. So now, if we add this report, we'll go back to the website, and it hasn't worked. Oh, is it just cached? Oh no, you know why? You know why? This is a good example of why this is wrong. That match report, although it's the most recent match report, look at the timestamp. It's a match report based on a match that was actually done on the 16th. So the most recent report is the 19th. So obviously that one is still going to show. So what we're doing is actually we're showing the most recent match in the form of a match report on the front page. So if we want to update this, when you think about it, it actually makes sense, because we would be creating a new match. There's going to be a match between well, two teams when it happens. So I'll add a new match called let's have Newcastle versus Sunderland. We'll say it was 5-2 to Newcastle, and we'll say that was today, 20th of the 9th 2016, and it kicked off at 3 o'clock. If we create that, now we have the most recent matches is there. Now we haven't actually written a match report for that yet, so if we go back to the website, it's still showing the Sunderland 4, Stoke City 8, because that's actually the most recent match. Now, if I go back to the admin and create a new match report, and I base it on this most recent one here, and just say Alan Shearer watched from the stands, wishing he was playing as Newcastle demolished the horrible Mackham scumbags. That works for me. Create. So now if we go back to the website, we should have a match report based on the most recent match. There you go, Newcastle 5, Sunderland 2. So this is the most recent match with a match report. And then we would obviously be able to click through. Now the idea being that we could go to all match reports, and then we would be able to see match reports for old matches that are taking place. But just because we're creating a match report doesn't mean to say that we want it to display on the homepage, because it might not be the sort of the most up-to-date match report that's just happened. And obviously people are coming to the website to see the most recent match reports for the most recent games. So that was quite a good example, and I wasn't prepared to show you really. It was kind of a fluke that happened, but when you think about it, it's actually worked out for the best. So like I said, just because we created a match report for a game, because that game wasn't a new game, that match report won't show up on the homepage, because it's not the latest match. So all good in the hood. Now what we need to do is we need to have a page where we can actually show this in full. So what we're going to do is just going to stop that, and we are actually going to add a page called View in the matches folder. So if I right click on that, I'm going to say add new scaffolded item, and I am going to say we want an MVC5 view, and it is going to be called View. It's going to be a template of details, and the model is going to be of type match report. We're not going to use the admin template, we're going to use the front end template. Click on add. It's going to build that page for us, and I'll show you what's going on in a minute. So this is going to be a match report here. You can see it's strongly typed as match report again. So in fact, what we could do is we could just copy and paste this stuff here, because this is all we want, and just paste it all over the top of this, because all this is doing is it's actually just writing out all of the different the match information. But we've already established that we want to show a decent template, so we'll just get rid of it all, copy and paste what we had from the home page, but this time we'll actually put model dot contents. And the contents, remember, is the HTML text that we have written. That's the actual match report itself. I'll just add this to the top. I'll say match report for, and then that will be sort of Newcastle versus Sunderland. And what we need to do now is we need to add a controller method so that the web address actually works. So what we can do here is we can say public. Oops, that's wrong. We're in the wrong controller. We need to be in the match reports controller, and we need to add a new method called view. So public action result. View. Return view. Now that is actually going to it's going to try to get to this page, but it's going to bomb out because we're not actually passing a match report in. So what we need to do is we need to determine which match report we want to show, because remember the idea, if we're going to view a match report, we need to specify which one it is that we're going to view. So the way we'll do that is, if I go back to that home page, we want another link saying view match. So I'll say equals view match report, and the link that we're going to generate would actually be match reports view, which is what we've just created, and then model.id, and that's the number of the match report, the unique identifier number. And in order to take that into account, we need to actually add something to the view so that we can actually accept a number. So if we go into the match reports controller, into the view method, we can actually put int id. So basically anytime a number is specified, it's going to come into this thing. So we would basically have / match reports / view / and then the number of the match report. Because if you remember, in our database, in our match reports table, you can see each one has a unique identifier, and that's where this one comes in. So, but what we need to do is, to get that data out, we need to specify a match report to go into the view, because that's what it's expecting at the top there. So we need to get that out of the database. So we need to create our match report repository, and then we need to say var report equals match report dot get all reports dot where the ID equals ID, not first or default. And what we can say is, if report is not null, we can return the view with the report in it. But if it is null, if the ID that we enter doesn't actually exist in the database, we can just put return redirect to that URL there, which is just the home page. So if we try to enter an ID or a match that doesn't actually exist, it'll just boot us back to the home page instead of showing an error page. So that's all there is to it. We've saying get all reports, but we only want the one where the ID matches the number that we specify, that parameter there. Get the first record. If it's not empty, then show it. If it is, we'll just boot them back to the home page. So let's try that out. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to say, just let that build. Where is it? So that's ready. So now if we refresh that home page, we should have a link underneath here which says view match report. Just give my laptop 10 minutes to kick in. There you go, view match report. Now if I hover over the top of that, you should notice in the bottom left hand corner it says match reports view number 4. So if we click on that, that's going to bomb out match reports. Have I put that in the wrong place or something? Match reports view. I have, you know, haven't I? Yeah, I've put it in matches. Let me cut Control X and paste that into the match reports folder. You should have told me I'd done that wrong. I was testing you. So now if I refresh that page that should work. So we've clicked on match reports, view number 4. There you go. So match report for Newcastle United 5-2 against Sunderland, and you can say Alan Shearer watched from the stands, wishing he was playing as Newcastle demolished the horrible Mackem scumbags. Just my opinion, don't take offence. If you do take offence, just turn the video off. But again, it hasn't actually shown the text properly though. It's actually writing it out into the page, and that is exactly what it said it would do. It said that we had to encode what was going to be displayed. Now, I can't actually remember how to do this offhand. I don't know how it's going to work, but there's 2 ways you can do this. If you go back to the view, we can actually say html.raw model.contents. I think that's the correct way to do it. That basically says that it'll write out the text as HTML, which will probably work. Just refresh the page. So there you go. It's actually shown the paragraph tags as proper paragraphs. But there is another way to do it, and I think it's server.html encode model.contents. Let's just put a line between those 2. So I think the top one's the correct one, but I think the bottom one will actually work as well, or it might actually show the raw HTML codes instead. Just bear with me 2 seconds. Yeah, you can see it's turned the p tags into like a badly formed, well, not a badly formed thing. It's encoded them so it actually displays the tags on the page as well. So that's not what we want. So we'll just use the first one. You can double check to see if it's the correct way of doing it. I think it is, but just remember to double check. So yeah, we've got our match report page. Now the beauty of that is, if I change this to number 3, it's actually going to change the match report to one of the ones that we've done beforehand. So this is a match report for Leicester. We have a match report for Sunderland v Stoke, and we have, of course, the one that matters, Tottenham Hotspur versus Newcastle United. Now, if you remember, we didn't actually put any paragraph tags in here, so this is never going to be displayed as HTML. So it's important now to kind of decide how you're actually going to create your match reports. Are you going to use HTML, or are you just going to use plain text? And if you're just going to use plain text, what you could do is you could just wrap that in a p tag like so, and then it would just format the text for you correctly, because the text of your report is in there between the wrapping p tags. But the best way to do it is for you to actually enter HTML on the back-end system, and that would allow you to sort of use little visual editors like CK Editor and Tiny MCE, and they're like little plugins that you can get to put in your web page, where when you're typing in the editor box, you can actually press a button to say bold or whatever, and it writes out HTML for you. So you can just type and it generates the HTML, saves it to the database, and then it would just get pumped out on the front end. So we'll leave it like that, and for the most recent report, it is it's working as it should be. Now, I know we've got this image on here. I haven't actually shown you how to put an image in there, and I'm not going to be honest. The way I would do it would be to allow you to upload images, but if you want to learn how to do that, hit me up in the comments, because it's a little bit more involved. The other way to do it would be, if you want to use sort of external images hosted somewhere else, we could just add another text field to the database and store the contents of a web address for an image against the match report as well, and then just display it on the page. But if you want that, if there's demand for it, I'll do a video on it. But for now, this is just kind of like a generic image that we're just going to sit and use. So this is your match report page. If we go to the latest match, this is the recent one with a match report link on there. So now what we need to do is we need to populate the page with all match reports. So what we want to do is you've kind of uncovered a little error that I've made. It's been a long time since I did this, unfortunately, but what we probably should have done for these is we should have made the index page in the match reports be called something like list, to list all of the match reports in the back end, because ideally what you would have on the front end would be being able to click on /match reports and then see all of the reports. So I'm going to do this a little bit differently to what I would normally do, but I'm going to teach you how to use root. So we can basically use any URL up here and point it to a controller. So the way we're going to do this is we're actually going to copy and paste this this view page. No, we're going to copy and paste this index page, and we're going to call it all. We're going to open it up, and this time we're just going to change the template to layout, which is the front one. We're going to get rid of the add button and just change this to all match reports. Oops. And we're going to go to our controller, and we're going to copy and paste this index method to the bottom, and we're going to call it all. You can see we're just basically creating a big list of all of the reports, and then we're dumping it into the view. So what's going to happen now is I can actually access I can actually access all of those reports by saying match reports all, because now I have a method set up in the match reports controller called all. So you can see we have a list of all of our different match reports here, but it's on the front end. Now obviously we would like to style this up a little bit so it looked a little bit nicer, but what we can do is we can actually go into the view and just put the link into the match report. So let's just do it on the first column. Again, it was match reports, view, and then the ID. And I'll just explain something to you in a second, just once I've done this. You'll notice that we're not using model.id, but because we're looping through all of the match reports that we've chucked across from our controller in here, we're going through, and each one's called R, so we're using r.id. And I've just cocked that up a little bit. Should get a nice thing there. So if I refresh this page now, these should actually be links. So you can see we can actually click on one of these to view that report. So let's view the Tottenham v Newcastle United one. We can go back, we can view the Leicester match, we can view the Newcastle v Sunderland. And in order to wire that up to the thing at the top, I'm just going to create a custom URL, and let's just say, what shall we call it? Let's go to the template, the layout, and we'll say for all match reports this is going to be called just all reports. So if I refresh that page now, and I hover over that, you can see it's pointing to / all reports at the bottom left. But if I click on it, it doesn't know where that is. So what we need to do is we just need to pause the application, and we need to go up into something called app start and root config. This is where it gets a little bit confusing. But if you copy and paste this here, this is basically where all of the URLs are defined, and this is like a standard one that says if a URL matches the name of the controller, the name of an action with an ID on the end, then it goes to home index. They're like the defaults. But if there is like a match reports / /index, then it'll just go to the match report index route. But we can actually apply custom ones by copying and pasting that, and we can say if the URL is all reports, we can actually redirect it to a specific controller. So in this case we want match reports all, and then if we have to give it a name, we'll just basically say custom route for all reports. So if I press F5, because that URL is set up now to point to that controller and that method, which we have in here, match reports all, if I go to that URL there, it should kick in on our match reports page. So that URL there is now exactly the same. There we go. It's now exactly the same as match reports all. Exactly the same page. But now I can click it on the top. Come on, it's taking ages. So all match reports. And then I can click through. We've got a dynamically generated thing. Let's just create another match report. Let's create another match. Let's create one between Man United and Stoke City for 2, and that was also today. Create. So back to the website. We haven't created a match report yet, so we'll create a new match report. Add based on the Man United v Stoke that we've just done, and we'll say a rare win for Man United. Create. Now if we go back to the home page, it's still showing that, because you know why? It's because it's the exact same date as the other one. Oh, for God's sake. Right, so admin, let's create a new match report, another one based on this. No, we need to create a new match. Oh, this has gone horribly wrong, isn't it? Man United versus Stoke. It was 4-2, and the timestamp is 20th of September, but it kicked off at 4 o'clock. No, 4 o'clock. So this should be the most recent one. We'll add another match report. There we go. It's now kicked in. A very rare win for Man United at home. Hit create. Back to the website. So now we've got a new match report. Our all match report has been updated. So the most recent one's at the top. I can click through, and there we go. A very rare win for Man United at home. However, the one we did create before that is still there. There we go. You can see it's below that one, even though they were exactly the same time. See, 15. There we go. So you kind of get the idea. It's all dynamic. It's all working. It's just it needs a few tweaks to make sure that the most recent ones are all showing at the correct times and stuff. I mean, the way we could actually do that would be to use something that's called then by. So if I want to show all match reports, I could actually say, so it says my match reports dot order by descending. So we first of all want to order by the timestamp, but if the timestamp's the same, then we want to say then by descending k equals k.id. So if the timestamps are the same, the most recent one will come first, because it's like counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So now if I go back to that page, that Man United one, there should be a most recent one, but there should also be a one underneath that was created at the same time as the Newcastle v Sunderland or whatever it was. Let's just remind ourselves. So that one there is the exact same time as this one, although this is a later report. It was actually created after this one. So if I refresh that page, hopefully if I've got it correct, then the Newcastle United one should go down below, and there should be 2 Man U v Stoke Cities at the top. There you go. So although that's the same time as the Newcastle one, because it was created after it, it's now like more recent, so it's closer to the top. So we fixed that, and it's just a kind of an illustration of the type of thing that you've got to look out for while you're building a website like this. But yeah, this is the most recent match report we can click through. So we're starting to get a really dynamic website. And I guess the next thing to do, the last thing to do here is, because now we've created our dynamic homepage, we've created a list of all of our match reports, we've created the match report viewing page, and again we can change that to the different games by just adjusting the URLs. So what we need to do now is we need to do a list of all of the teams, and show all of the match reports for them. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this video up as well, because I think this one's going to be a little bit more in depth. So let's cut here. If you like the content, even though it's all over the place sometimes, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, please do so. And I'll see you in the next one, where we create the page with all the teams and all of the matches that they've actually participated in. So I'll see you there. Alright, cheers, thanks for watching.